I think the first two steps are, what's the change we're trying to make and who are we trying to change?
Sure.
Who's it for and what's it for?
Sure.
Okay. So what Starbucks has found every single time Howard Schultz has tried something else, he keeps coming back to two things. One, don't make lousy coffee. Every time the coffee quality goes down, they realize they have to recalibrate and make it go back up. It doesn't mean they have to make the best coffee, but they bought not Slayer. They bought that other company that made a really expensive coffee machine. I can't remember what it was. They tried to get into instant coffee, each time trying to raise the standard of coffee. And the second thing they try to do is build the third place. Free Wi-Fi, comfortable place to sit, clean bathroom. No one's going to ask you to leave. It's like a pub, except they don't serve beer, right? Those are the two things that are at the heart of their story. Blank Street, and I'll confess, I don't drink coffee and I haven't been to a Blank Street, but I've walked past it many times. Blank Street seems to say, please come here and take your coffee and leave. They don't look like they're trying to build a warm, hospitable, large place for you to hang out with your friends for 3 hours. This place is, you're going to get an espresso. It's going to be delicious, cheaper than Starbucks. See ya tomorrow. And they can rent smaller places, have higher turnover, and compete with Starbucks without any of the costs that Starbucks has. That seems like an interesting game to play. The challenge you have is most people think they care about coffee quality, but past a certain level, they can't tell the difference. And that means that Blank has to create enough momentum that people get hooked on the process of buying coffee from them, because in a blind taste test, they probably cannot taste the difference.
And is that where the time element comes into this? Is it the literal time with the consumer? Is that where you're going with that?
No, that's not what I mean by time. Time,
okay, what do you mean by time?
Like the forest idea is this. The first month of Nespresso's P&L was terrible.
Sure.
Right? It took 5-10 years. When I was at Yahoo had the chance to buy Google for $10 million. The whole company. Because it wasn't worth anything for the first year. They had zero revenue. They were planting seeds. So what are you doing today that you will be really glad a year from now that you did? And so, if we think about peanut butter, which in my country is mostly a commodity, what would you have to invest today so that 3 years from now, it's paying off 100 times, right? And that's not an easy question to answer. If it was, the people at Nestle's would have already figured it out. But the food business tends to have moments of inspiration followed by long stretches of commodity. And I promise, if you're a small food entrepreneur and you get into the commodity mindset, you will lose.
But by commodity mindset, unpack that a little bit more.
A commodity means that you can buy this if you want this, but there's one over there that's just like it. You only make a commodity if you think you're making a commodity.
Do you think there's a commodification of strategy and storytelling in that almost a founder is looking in the same field as every other tree that's being planted and thinking, I want to be a bit like that? And that's where you're kind of trying to choose the same customer. Does that make sense? You're trying to say
a little bit. I guess what I'm getting at is this. If someone offered me cell phone service like I have now for half the price, I would switch instantly. AT&T has no brand. Verizon has no brand, et cetera, et cetera. They're all the same. Just give me the cheapest one. And anytime I have 4 hours just to waste, I could go buy a cheaper cell phone alternative, right? What I'm talking about is some customers will cross the street for a better jar of peanut butter. Most of them will not, but some will. What makes it better? That is the key question, right? Because it's probably not in a blind taste test. The Journal of Wine Economists has shown that sommeliers and other people who are fancy prefer $100 wine over $10 wine, unless it's a blind taste test, in which case they prefer $10 wine over $100 wine. So what are you buying when you buy a $100 bottle of wine? You're buying the story of a $100 bottle of wine, not what it tastes like. So the challenge you got to hear is you need to build a story that people who want a story will pay for.
I love the Bruce Lee quote, be like water. And I try to embody that, where you just kind of move with things. But in your illustrious career in marketing, like, I'd love to know what's been the biggest unforeseen change, like cataclysmic change, and how did you adapt like water to that?
So let's talk about what I mean by the current. I can see out my window the Hudson River. The Hudson River is a tidal estuary, means 12 hours it goes one direction, 12 hours it goes the other. And
how does that work?
It's a fjord. It goes with the tide.
Okay. Sure.
But when you look at it from a distance, it looks like a lake. There are no waves on it. The difference between a lake and a river is there's a current. On a lake, it doesn't matter which way you go because the water's just sitting there. But if there's a current, it's totally different to paddle your canoe upstream than downstream. So what makes someone a good surfer is they pick good waves. That's it. That's the key. Picking good waves. So in my career, I have been buffeted by my unwillingness to see waves when I should see them. The most expensive moment was when I wrote one of the first 5 books about the internet. In that moment, I had enough resources and skill. I could have built Yahoo. But instead of building a search engine, I wrote a book about the internet. And the book ended up selling, 12,000 copies or something. And Yahoo went off to be worth $80 billion. So I have this t-shirt that I sit right over there to remind me that doing what I think I'm supposed to do is not my job. My job is to see what is going to happen next. Where is the current flowing? And it's very easy to dismiss things that are happening and saying that's not real, like AI. But it's also easy to get caught up and say NFTs when they're junk, right? So it's not easy to tell where the current is flowing, but it flows. And if we can see it and dance with it, the wind is at our back, as opposed to fighting to insist to the world that we are right.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks your e-com and accounting software. It's helped islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel, and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.